Hello. Today I would like to take a couple minutes of your time and talk to you about problems with the Common Core educational standards and how the continued use and implementation is hurting our educational system through over-testing, harsh penalties for the test, and an ineffective one-size-fits-all approach to education. An October 2014 article published in SunSentinel.com released the results of the state of Iowa's newly implemented Common Core tests. The results were so alarmingly poor, the majority of the schools in that state will receive a letter grade of a D or an F. Now, almost everyone in this class has been exposed to or will be exposed to the new state-led, federally funded educational standards. Whether you are in the last couple of years of high school or you have a kid in school like I do, you are more than likely going to face the heartache that is known as the Common Core educational standards. Last year, my oldest son, who was in third grade at the time, came home and asked me to help him with his math homework. After a look at his problem sheet, I was amazed at how complex the new standards made solving simple problems, especially when I thought about it through his perspective. I began to realize there is more problems with these new standards than just the complexity of rewriting simple math. Despite growing opposition, state governments continue to pass bills which either extend or implement new Common Core standards. Today, I would like to urge you to take action and uphold your civic responsibility by letting your state representatives or governors know that these standards continue to overtest students, hold harsh penalties for teachers and students who do not perform well on these tests, and use an ineffective one-size-fits-all approach to education. So first, let's look at the problem with overtesting. Students are overburdened with standardized tests today. An article passed in April 18, 2015 on PBS.org cited a survey from the Great City Schools Council and found that students in grades ranging from grade school to high school take over 113 standardized tests throughout their career, and 17 which are federally mandated. PBS.org also published another article in January of this year, which the Center for American Progress performed a snapshot of 7 states and found that kids as early as third grade took approximately 20 standardized tests a year. I think that's a bit excessive, and I take it to heart when I read of things like published child psychotherapist Kate Hurley saying, quote, "The people behind the Common Core might think that they are ensuring college and career readiness, but what they are really ensuring is a generation of anxious, robotic children who can memorize answers but don't know how to think," end quote, as stated in her article she published in 2013 on HuffingtonPost.com. So as you see, the primary focus of schools with the Common Core standards is testing. And this overkill of testing puts a lot of stress on the students, teachers, and the school as a whole. Either they take the test and they do well, or they suffer the consequences. And for example, and the consequences can be quite harsh. A straight A third grade student who opts out or does poorly on one of the FSA test this year will be retained. Now the language was a little bit different last year, and you can see the language on FloridaLegislature.com. And last year the final retention decision was given to the individual districts and counties, and some counties students were retained and some counties weren't. Like ours, Bay County Superintendent Husfeld did not opt to retain third graders or those who were eligible to be retained for poor test scores are not taking the test. And one part of that was due to the late release of the FSA scores. Came out 3 weeks after the end of the school year. And after the report cards were due out. Students aren't the only one who face, semi-harsh penalties. Teachers face poor evaluations, which could lead to not getting any bonuses or any other supplementals, financial supplementals. And then the schools themselves face the penalty of receiving a letter grade of a D or an F, which some federal funding goes to is dependent upon what their letter grade is. But there's also the stigma that comes with having a letter grade of an F. I mean, would you really want to send your kid to a school that has a letter grade of an F, even though it might be the best school for them? And then the last thing is the one-size-fits-all approach to education does not work. An article published back in 2010 on Newsmax.com quoted Secretary of Education Arne Duncan as saying, quote, if we have learned anything from No Child Left Behind, it's that one-size-fits-all remedies generally don't work, end quote. However, here we sit 5 years later with Common Core, which is basically No Child Left Behind renamed. And it doesn't work. Every child is an individual and needs to be approached differently. They respond to different stimuluses, respond to different methods, and has different capabilities. So as you can see, there are several issues with Common Core standards and continued implementation, and specifically with the overtesting and the penalties they bring. I urge you to help share your voice to your local leaders or representatives or governors. Governor Scott is currently passing legislation which would limit the number of tests, number of hours given to testing. And the stress created for testing on students and teachers significantly detracts from the true purpose of schools, which is to teach so kids can learn. And some of the greatest minds created things from outside the box. If Tesla or even Steve Jobs had strictly been taught to memorize tests, perhaps we wouldn't be without the iPhone, wireless communications, or even AC electricity. So I urge you to go out there, speak your mind, and look out for the future of our children, for our future.